I prefer not to table it just because we have been going around for months. I know we haven't had any serious incidents here, but it could happen at any time. And then we're looking back and wondering why we didn't do something. I don't like the cost either, and I guess I have questions with the upgrade, but I don't know. I know you had given direction to Administrator Krecklow to come back with some other options, and that did not happen.
No,
So I don't know if
and I-
there's anything else available.
we can let this motion fail and I'll propose another one, but I sent articles to this committee
Mhm.
from the Village of Greenfield that was far, far, far less. In addition, technology is constantly changing. We all know that. Technology in 2 years from now is not going to be the same technology we have. And who knows what they're going to become obsolete at some point. And I don't want to spend another penny of the village's dollars on these, sorry.
Right. And I do get amber alerts and silver alerts, but I never get anything for the weather.
That's because we haven't had any
Right.
tornadoes.
Right. But you don't know when that's could happen.
But I do know that they're like phones will alert due to severe weather, like when, I don't know, the major,
I'll be on.
sorry, I'm lack of words, whoever sends out the weather alerts. Because I do have friends in Florida for the hurricane and their phones did go off.
I won't be able to tell them. That's, I'm like, it's.
So we can let this motion fail and I'll make another one. That's fine with me.
what's the problem? You guys-
Yeah, I'd rather make a decision tonight
Okay, fine.
instead of,
Okay.
Let's withdraw our motion.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So I'll make another motion. And it has to be in
Alright.
positive,
Okay.
correct?
Let's see.
So I'll make a motion to approve unfinished business item A.
In which format? One way or second way, two way?
The
Oh.
two-way was over
There's
100,000.
two versions they've got. One, they
This-
announced themselves, the other
Version A.
version A.
Well,
I'll
Version A was over 100,000,
No,
correct?
Version A.
No?
was
Okay,
$22,699.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
okay. Do you know, Captain Merton, if this money is put aside or where we would get this money from?
I believe this would have to probably go to GGF and see if there's money available for it because it was never discussed last year and was tabled.
Was not put in the budget.
No. The other thing is if you decide to not do anything with them, do we still keep up the maintenance agreement this year? With Sheboygan Warning? Because if we're not going to keep them, is it worth having maintenance done on them? So that's another decision that needs to be made. Because if we're not going to do it, I guess what's the sense of doing maintenance on them?
I can get a quote over for removal of the system as well, if that would be something that you guys are looking to do. Otherwise, like you said, you can let them sit. It's just over the years, I would just watch those poles since the wood poles are gonna deteriorate over time, so don't want one of them falling, hitting a car or whatever it may be. That would be my only advice on that.
And have you ever seen that happen?
Poles falling?
Yes.
Yes.
And at what age have
It
you
really
seen that
depends.
happen?
The older poles tend to last better. It all depends. There's a million different kinds of wood poles just due to the different kinds of trees that they come from, what they're treated with. There's a lot of variables to it.
And do we have metal poles or wood poles?
Wood poles.
We have wood poles, okay.
Yeah, that's why it's just a concern, but that's obviously not for the very near future at all.
Any other questions? All right, Amy, can you please repeat the motion?
Original motions were withdrawn. Trustee Peeper motion to approve the 22,000 option, seconded that. So that's where we stand.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails.
Okay, so we have a failure of approving number one. I'll make a motion to approve number two, the second option, which is the $100 and something thousand option.
I'll second for discussion.
Simply because you did not approve one doesn't mean two is approved.
Okay, all right,
Just
gotcha.
nothing has been approved until we approve it.
Gotcha.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails.
So then can we make a motion to not approve anything and disband the warning system? Either option.
So that's it,
Then we are satisfied, we've satisfied.
correct?
Do we want to have them taken down is what our captain has asked? Maintained?
I can get a quote from them on what it would be to dismantle them.
I would get
Down.
a quote to dismantle them and a quote to just to maintain them for a year.
Yeah,
I think we already have the quote
Yeah.
for the maintenance for the year. We were just holding off to see what the status of this would be, so.
Okay.
I don't know it off.
2 year. So the lack of it, but that being said, you guys are. Want to save money more to help people in previous or anything like that.
Yeah. So let's get a price to take them down then.
Okay.
New business item A, Tough Book computer purchase.
Whose item is this?
get-
would be,
I'm getting to it right now. This was budgeted for this year in the budget for 7 tough books. To replace, we have about 10 of them that are 2015, so about 10 years old. They're starting to deteriorate. We replaced a couple of them over the last couple of years that have malfunctioned. So this would replace the other, at least most of them, that are 2015 or older. There's also a Cradle Point, 2 docking stations. One of them is probably within that 10-year, and there's another one that's about 8 years. So that would replace those 2. The desk docks basically are universal docks, so we can take the laptops out of the cars and bring them into the office and basically hook them up and use that as your terminal.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented
second,
for discussion.
Trustee Peeper?
yeah, is there any resale value on these? And is my first question. Second question is, how much did we put in the budget and how much is it costing?
Resale value, probably not much. It's old technology.
So what do you usually do with, your mic's not on, by the way. What do you do with the technology then, or in instances such as this, when they are being decommissioned?
The village has they take all the, I forgot what it's called, the e-waste. They got one coming up, so that's where we usually take all the old electronics, and then they do it twice a year.
I would recommend looking into places that are somewhat like e-waste, but actually give you money back that you could put into your budget.
We can put them on to Wisconsin surplus and see what we get for them. Obviously, we gotta take the hard drives out of them and smash them, but we can try that and see what we'll get for them. Some of them are missing keys, so we're not gonna put new keys on them. So we'll see what we can get for them.
So who actually destroys the hard drives?
We take them out back and just take a sledgehammer.
Okay. No further questions?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? New business item B, IDEMIA booking software.
This is also mine. This is also a budget item for this year. It's to replace our fingerprint software. It's no longer compatible since we upgraded our Pro Phoenix to the multi-juris. We had to replace the camera and we were waiting for the fingerprint system because the fingerprints were not transferring either. So this system would take care of everything and update our entire fingerprint system and camera. And your question as far as the budget, the money, it actually came in under the budget as far as the price on it, the computers and this.
Well, great.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Question? Is there any, because we are forced onto this new radio system, is there any money from the county or the state to bring other technology up to speed with the technology they're making us go to?
They got a grant, however, we did try to get the camera through that grant, but it didn't qualify. So any other grants out there, there's nothing out there right now.
All right.
Are there, I thought I saw somewhere in here about annual maintenance cost. I know there's a warranty for the first year, but then that would be something you'd have to come back for next year. $3,199 for maintenance.
Yes, we'd have to, you see, next year we'd have to budget for the maintenance of that software and the camera and everything to keep it up to date.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes. Item C, application for appointment of successor agent Quick Trip number 631 W188 and 10963 Maple Road. Agent for consideration Tristan Sparks.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, application for temporary Class B beer and Class B wine retailers license Deutschstadt Heritage Foundation's MyFest on 5/16/25 to 5/18/25 at Fireman's Park.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item E, a resolution establishing the fee for outdoor entertainment permits.
Good evening. The item before you at the moment is a continuation of the action that the board took on January 5th or whatever the first meeting date was, where we created the outdoor entertainment permit. That ordinance says that we will establish a fee for those permits. So this resolution does just that. It is proposed that the fee structure would be an annual permit would be $350. Basically, as you'll recall, would allow an individual to utilize outdoor entertainment as much as they applied for and that they were granted within their permit. The temporary basis, meaning a one-time type event basis. For those, we are proposing that the first two of those permits in any calendar, well, not calendar year, but in a license year runs from June 30th or July 1st through June 30th every year, basically to coincide with the alcohol licensing, just because most of the folks that will seek these permits are also alcohol license holders, so it keeps them together. The first two of those would be free in any year. The primary reason for that was this body will recall during discussions as we were talking about the noise ordinance and this type of concept, there were concerns about those one-time type events, MyFest, for example, being potentially one of them, where we didn't want to necessarily be imposing fees for that. And then anything after that second permit would be $75 per permit that is there. Did have a question from one of the trustees over the weekend and did a little going back through my notes. The question was, how do these fees how do we come up with them? How do they compare to other communities that have similar type licenses? Basically, how we came up with it was a combination of both looking at other communities and what they were charging, and then also to try to come up with fees that reflected our actual cost of operating the permit fee. And so it's anticipated that between putting together the notice, identifying the, doing the address search for the 500 feet notice that's going to go out, processing the application, that kind of stuff, would take about an hour's worth of staff time. And so the $75 is really designed to recoup that cost for the purpose of doing that. The annual license fee is set at $350. Obviously, depending on how many times in a year they use it, that may be a benefit to them overall as opposed to getting individual permits every time. But obviously there's only one process that we would need to go through as part of that. But we do increase the fee really in part to offset some of those one-time uses that aren't going to pay a fee. But then also just to reflect that, there are continuing obligations above and beyond just that one event that we need to monitor, any complaints that come in, any, citations, for example, that get issued, that kind of stuff. So when you look at that, that was really the idea, was to try to recoup our costs on the program as much as we can. As we look at other communities, it's a little bit hard to say because everybody calls. To the extent that communities have this specific permit, they call it something different. So it's hard to kind of locate it. There's plenty of communities that have similar type permits as well. But just to kind of give you a rundown of some of the ones that that do have a similar enough permit that I felt comfortable comparing them. Madison charges just $300 a year for anybody. Milwaukee has a sliding scale. It's based on the number of people ultimately that you intend to have in any particular event. That runs from $50 on the low end to $2,000 on the high end. In addition, if you get too high, then they call it forget what they call it, but it's another permit above and beyond that. And the fees there are just set totally by the police department. Basically, the police department is going to come in, do security, have, additional costs that are associated with it. And so the police department sets that fee for those types of events. Cedarburg has what they call a festival permit, a little bit different than what we have, but they charge $300 for that. Franklin has what they call a temporary permit, which is only $25. But then they have what they call an extraordinary permit, which is $100 per event. West Bend is effectively $75 for each. But that after you get to the sixth one and each one above that is $400 per application. Lake Delton has a $50 per day or an annual permit for $300. Green Bay has a sliding scale, much like Milwaukee did, anywhere for, and depending on the size, anywhere from $0 for a very small local event to up to $500. And that's, I should add, a resident-based fee. They charge differently if it's an outside entity coming in and doing something. Just looking here, Watertown, $50 for the first one, $35 for each subsequent one in any calendar year. Sun Prairie is $100 per year. Sun Prairie is a little bit different, and that's just music, period, whether it's indoors, outdoors, whatever the case may be. They just charge $100 a year for that. Kenosha is $50 a day or $300 a year. Plus, they also would require you to get an outside premises extension for that, which is similar to what we would do here. Pewaukee is $30 per year, but their entertainment permit includes everything from things like horseshoe pits all the way up to, loud music that you're playing as part of that. So my guess is they're trying to balance the spectrum of what they've got there. Caledonia is $300 per year. Mount Pleasant is $25 or $150, depending on year versus individual event. Egg Harbor is $175 per event, and they limit it at a maximum of 2 events per year. And then Middleton is just a flat $50 per event with no cap. So kind of a wide spectrum of what's there. And again, we just tried to reflect both our costs and to not be overly aggressive in terms of what we were proposing. So that's the proposal. Happy to obviously consider any input on those fees and modifications that might be recommended.
I make a motion to approve item E of new business, but making the annual fee 200 instead of 350.
I'll second for discussion.
Reason being, this is revenue that we haven't been getting before, and I don't want to put any more red tape on our small businesses.
I understand. I do appreciate that this is separate now, so if there is a problem with noise at a business, you can take the permit for outdoor entertainment away, but not affect their running of their business. So I do appreciate that. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. New business item F, an ordinance amending section 12.03 of the Germantown Municipal Code related to suspension or revocation of outdoor entertainment permits.
Sure. Once again, just a continuation of that discussion that took place in early January. You'll recall at the time there were concerns by multiple trustees during that discussion that there was pieces of the code that seemed to be missing, that they wanted more detail with respect to how we might suspend or revoke one of these permits as part of that. And so this proposed code amendment does just that. Basically, what it provides for is that the Public Safety Committee, you folks, initially would hold a hearing on any request to suspend or revoke that. That request can come by a written complaint by a neighbor or a citizen. Could be on referral of either of the two chiefs. So, we're issuing a bunch of citations, for example, to somebody. Police chief might refer something over. Fire department goes by and says, hey, these guys are operating in an unsafe manner. They might refer it to the committee as well. And then likewise, the village board or this committee could on their own volition decide that they want to pursue a hearing. We would give notice to the holder that we're going to have that discussion here at the committee. And then this recommendation ultimately would go to the village board for them to make a ultimate determination. That ultimate determination could be to suspend, to revoke, or to place additional conditions on any permit that's been issued. And so that's kind of the bare bones. And then we do have a provision that just says if they're tied to a retail alcohol beverage license, so it's a bar, for example, and we would for some reason revoke that alcohol license, we would likewise revoke the permit that's associated with the outdoor entertainment. If they're not operating as a bar, they shouldn't be operating with the noise. So that's kind of the process that we're proposing. Again, really for discussion at this point, and happy to answer questions or take input.
Trustee Pieper?
Yeah, so I have a question about the language. So this is section 12.03 subsection, or chapter 7 subsection A. It says here, let me just find it. Suspension or revocation proceedings may begin upon a verified written complaint being filed with the clerk. Then comma, referral by the police or fire chief, comma, or a motion of the public safety, yada, yada, yada. So anybody can go to the clerk and file a complaint, like one person, and then the suspension or revocation proceedings are going to begin?
Correct. Basically, a verified written complaint is a complaint that details the circumstances of the complaint and then is notarized to be truthful as part of that. And then with that complaint, that then gets forwarded to this body.
So realistically, one of the residents in Germantown could go to the clerk and file a complaint on every single place for noise in Germantown, businesses wise. And then they'd all be under suspension and revocation proceedings?
Correct. I mean, the idea is that it's relatively informal. I mean, it's not like, we're gonna bring in, additional attorneys to, have testimony and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
we need better language than this. I cannot support this at all. The suspension or revocation proceedings needs to be expanded, in my opinion. I would say that those are only started by either the Public Safety Committee, the Village Board, or Police and Fire Chief.
The only problem I could see with that is if a citizen does have a lot of complaints or problems, do they then go to the police and we get a police report and we go from there? Or what would be under?
They go to the clerk and the clerk would then forward it to the appropriate department.
Trustee Baum?
I don't like the thought of a resident starting this process and
Agreed.
the amount of times that we have had these issues come up without police or the fire chief being involved.
Mhm.
I have a problem with a resident just coming in and they can complain every week, and this poor business owner is brought in on a weekly basis to fight yet another complaint. So I'm not sure I want the resident to be able to do that. I think the resident should call the police department and say, I have a complaint,
Mhm.
and the police department.
Then once the police department figures out that this is becoming a habit, then we would then receive it from either fire chief or police chief. I agree.
Right, but the wording you have in here is that the proceedings may begin upon a verified complaint. So it's not guaranteed just because somebody comes in and complains to the clerk that
It's not
anything's
clear.
going forward.
I don't think it's clear enough though. And I think we definitely need clarity on that. Or again, I would like to see what other villages have in regards to this comparable to ours.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, for example, I'm aware of some communities that have provisions that say, hey, if a complaint is filed, that some, municipal officer, whether it's the police chief or the administrator or, whatever the case may be, depending on, I guess, the nature of what you're looking to enforce, has to make some determination of whether there's enough here to proceed or not, type of a thing. This was drafted really with the intent that ultimately it would be you folks making that decision. That's the may language that I think that the thought was that it would come here initially to say, hey, we've got these complaints. And then you guys could make a determination from there, whether you wanted to proceed with a hearing based on that complaint or not. Not that we would, in every instance, do a full hearing where we're going to send out notice and that kind of stuff. But certainly we can.
I'll make a motion to table this, to research the comparable municipalities, what they have in their ordinance, and also clarify the language in here.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, anything else in here we want clarified before we vote?
I'll just say that my big hangup is a resident coming in against a business on a regular basis. If we don't have our police department addressing the issue first, now I'm the police officer. This board becomes a police officer to tell a business what to do. That's not what I'm here for. So I don't want it to be
It could cause a lot of problems, I agree.
that's all I have to say.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion passes. That concludes all our new business. The next meeting is Monday, March 3rd at 6 PM in the Village Boardroom, and this meeting is adjourned.
Mhm.